Hello, welcome to another episode of The Chubby Chef. Today we're going to be roasting butternut squash. This is a great autumn squash. It's very hearty and it's delicious when it's roasted because it gets all caramelized. A lot of people will tell you to roast it either whole with maple syrup or honey, but you really don't need to. There's a lot of sugar in a squash already, and if you cube it, which is what I'm going to show you, and then roast it, you're going to caramelize. All that sugar is going to come out and it's going to be very sweet on its own. So the only seasoning that you need is oil, salt, and pepper. So to begin, we're going to have to peel this, and it's a difficult process, so I'm going to try to speed it up here for you. But first you cut off the top part here. Already tell how tough that is. And then we compost so everything gets saved. And then we got to get a peeler. This is a standard peeler. I don't think it's going to work. I may have to end up using the mandolin, but we're going to try. So let's see. Oh yeah, that is definitely not going to work. So I'm going to take out the mandolin and we're going to peel it that way. It's going to be a lot easier. I cannot stress enough how important it is to be safe using a mandolin. I have cut off the tip of my finger before because I wasn't paying attention and I just went right over the blade and it bled for hours. Trust me, like I said, I cannot stress enough how important it is to be careful. Now, because of the size of the squash that we're using, I can't use the guard, so I have to be extra careful. First, because it's bulbous, we got to cut it off at the bulb so we get as close to a cylinder as possible. Then, being very careful, like I said, we're going to set this at a very thin setting. I'm just going to go over it like that. See that? It's almost perfect. So, I'm going to keep doing that until it's all gone. I have to tell you, I'm very nervous doing this because of my experience. Alright, see, it's not all coming off because it isn't a perfect cylinder, but I'll get that off with a knife later, so just keep going. Okay, these are my peels. Pretty thin, which is what you want. You don't want to waste any of the squash if you can avoid it. So I'm just going to finish this off. I don't need to show you. I'm going to finish this off myself. Okay, I'm just doing the last little bits here, but just to show you what I'm doing, take the knife and just get those pieces that we missed. So like that. Get it pretty thin, you know. And you don't want any skin on this because you definitely don't want to eat roasted skin. It's really gross. Oh, see, I missed some at the bottom here. Alright. I'm going to go finish this part, and then I'll be back. Okay, so we're all peeled. All of my peel here is going to go into a little bowl here. Once I'm done, I'll just throw this into my compost bin. And that way, this will actually go to the city compost. We do have a compost in our backyard, but it's full and it's winter, so we're not really using it. But the city can use it, so that's fine. Oh, gotta go. Okay, so now it's time to empty the inside. Like a pumpkin, squash is part of the pumpkin family. It's got seeds. Fun tip, you can roast these like pumpkin seeds if you want to. You're not gonna get a ton, but if you really like that kind of stuff, it can be done. So take a spoon, just want to scoop out all the guts. And it's just like a pumpkin. It's a little bit harder than a pumpkin because it's a little bit firmer, but you get the idea. I'm just going to finish that off. Okay, fun thing about the butternut squash is unlike an acorn or spaghetti squash, the seeds are only in the bulb. There's not going to be any in here, so we don't need to worry about that. But if it was any other type, you'd have to open the whole thing in half, scoop it out. So, see, that's pretty clean there. There's a little bit left, don't worry. We're going to be cutting this up so we can just pick off whatever's left when we clean it up. So this is all the guts that we took out. Again, that's going into compost. Could roast it. I just don't feel like it, but normally I would. So I'm going to clean this up and then we're going to start cubing. So now we're going to start cubing, and you want to get them to as close to 1 inch even cubes as possible. And this is because it's going to cook more evenly that way. So I'm going to speed up the camera and then we'll start the seasoning and cooking. Okay, now we're doing the stock, so I've cut it straight down in about 1 inch. Then we've got these flat planks. We're just going to grid them. So I've already cut them up one way, and then they're going to go like that, dot, 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 dot. So let's continue. So this is the finished product. You may have noticed that I cut a few of them a little bit thinner. That's because they were thicker to begin with. So, you know, you try to make a perfect cube. It's a circular object. You're going to have a few pieces that you're going to have to just kind of make do. But now we're going to get ready to season it, which is just 3 tablespoons of olive oil, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper, and that's it. So let's do that. Now, one of the reasons we're doing this in a bowl as opposed to just straight on the cookie sheet, which is where it's going to end up, is because the only way to get a nice even coating is to toss it. And you really can't do that on a cookie sheet. You're not going to get that even disbursement of oil and salt and pepper. So you can take a spoon to mix it up a little bit, but really tossing it's going to be how we get. You can see here I already found a piece that didn't quite cut through. All right, that is done. Make sure to get a cookie sheet big enough to hold them all. And very important, you'll need parchment paper. You need to, this is plastic wrap. We have parchment paper. I'm going to find that. But you need to layer your sheet with parchment paper or it's going to burn. So I'm going to go find the parchment paper. All right, welcome back. We're now ready to start cooking. I've placed parchment paper on the cookie sheet, and now it's going to go into our 400-degree oven. Now, here's a fun little trick because I'm cooking a ham as well, and it cooks at a lower temperature. So what I'm going to do is, if you'll see here, I'm going to put just a lower rack for the ham, the upper rack for the squash, and it's going to actually block the heat a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit cooler, hopefully 25 degrees. It's not a perfect system, but it's the best we can do, and it will help. So here we go. And that's going to cook for half an hour. And then in half an hour, we're going to take it out. We're going to give it a toss and put it back in for another 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, we're getting ready to turn. We've got about 30 seconds left. And I want to tell you a little bit something about timing. The ham that I've cooked takes 30 minutes. The squash takes 30 minutes plus 15. So what I did was I put in the squash for 30 minutes. Once it hit 15, then the ham goes in. After that 15 minutes is done, squash comes out, gets turned, gets thrown in for another 15, and that should all equal the 30 minutes for the ham and the 45 minutes for the squash. That's if you get your timing right. So hopefully I did, because I mean it's going to take me a minute or two to do the flipping, but let's get started on that. Okay, it's a little hard to do this while holding the phone, but basically what you're looking to do is just give them a toss, flip them around. The goal here is to allow more caramelization to hit all of the surfaces of your squash, and then spread them out. You're going to see they've shrunk. That's normal because the moisture, a lot of moisture in the squash is evaporating out, and then it goes, move dog, back up dog, right back in. Another 15 minutes. That only took me about a minute. So all things go well, everything should come out at the same time. So thank you. Alright guys, so I couldn't get it to it before we got to it, but this is the final product. Very soft, mushy, and very sweet. So that's the end of my video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time when we'll learn something new.